To your ghost shrimp.
Right.
You were saying that you take a sprout hook,
Mhm.
go through the tail. Now, when you come down through the are you going through the top or the bottom?
I'm going through the bottom.
Okay.
Good question. And right in the middle of the legs, that's its carapace, and that would be the hardest part of its body. So you're going from the very tail, like if you open that tail up, looks just like a little lobster tail. If it was much bigger, we could eat it. A little hot sauce, ready to roll. But you just open that thing up and you just start at the very end and go with one of those sprout hooks. And you could use a kale hook, which is another style. And actually with those creatures, you could use a bait holder hook and go all the way through till you get the tip of that up to where the legs are and then punch it through and you're ready to go. A lot of times your line will now be inside of the little creature.
Yeah,
Do they stay alive?
Yes, most of those
No,
off, and
everything
then
else
with
is
muscle
used
too, but I
Oh,
learned with muscle, how to put it on.
They don't care.
You take
If you
thread
want
and
to
you
try-
wrap it.
Well, you
Some
can
of
use
these
silk
people-
thread or dental
Put it in
floss
red
and
floss
wrap that on there. The way that I like to do it is I will open up the
Okay.
mussel and I will take the soft portion of the mussel and put that on the hook first and then double and triple over that with the lip that goes around the outside, which is very rubbery and very strong and will hold the whole thing together. You can get plenty of a cast. The thing to remember about mussel is that most surffish that eat mussel, do you think they shuck mussel? Do you think that fish, like, they're down there swimming around and all of a sudden this perfectly shucked piece of mussel comes to them and they eat it? No, most fish eat mussel that have shell in it. So I will crush a mussel and I will attach the shell, part of the shell, and the mussel itself. So it looks much more natural. And they'll eat the whole thing. They don't look at it like, hey, I don't like the shell. Neil?
When you're using mussels, do you use like magic thread or something to keep
Well,
it off the hook?
some people use silk thread, magic thread, silk thread. I don't, way too much effort. I just put the soft part on first, and then if you take the lip, which is like like your shoe leather or whatever, and put that on last a couple, 2-3 times, it'll hold that whole piece on there for you.
Even with the big cast?
Even with a nice strong cast and big surf.
I find you just use sewing needle
Uh-huh.
thread. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't tie it, I just wrap it.
You just wrap
10 or
it
12 times, and I can cast it as far as you want.
Exactly, and that works fine. Now, in the old days, we used to parboil. Boy, that was fun. We would parboil mussel, and it made it really
Well, if you
rubbery.
don't catch any fish, you eat it, or?
That's right. That's right. Take a little sandwich bread with you, and ready to roll.
And then do you hook your soft shell sand crabs different than your regular hardy hard shell sand crab?
No, I'm going to hook them exactly the same way. So I didn't bring any sand crabs with me today, but the way that I hook them is I punch the hook through the head, which is the skinny part of a sand crab, all the way through to the eyes on their back, and turn the hook forward. And then so the crab is like this. This is the top. Of course, these are its little legs. So it goes through, and then I take the sharp part of the hook and punch it through, so the very tip of the hook just sticks up, and that way the hook cradles the sand crab. You never want to just single hook through a sand crab, because it will spin in a circle,
Yeah.
and then Bob will get it.
You hook it from the top? From the very
Yes,
top?
I hook it through the top, and then the hook goes all
You
the
don't
way through, and I turn
Flip
it
it
forward.
down where that tail's at, go through that way?
Exactly. That little tail or appendage where the eggs are, I'm going to punch the hook back through that to hold it into place, and then just through the top. If you don't punch through that little appendage, a little tail, which it is a tail, it will open up, and it'll be like a little wing, and that thing will spin underwater for you.
Why don't you use like frozen baits, like frozen chogies and frozen squids and stuff?
Let me give you an example. Do you ever go out like on the long range boat and catch a fish, and you take some home and eat it that night or the next day, and then you freeze some of it and a month later you eat it? Done that. And it tastes better like the day that you caught it or the day after and you eat it, right? Like it tastes a lot better. It's like more juicy and all that. So that's the same theory, with baits, is if we have frozen bait, like squid or anchovy or something, because when it freezes it, as sea creatures break down, they produce ammonia. Slight amount of ammonia that you wouldn't even taste or notice, but it does change the flavor in it when you eat something that's been frozen for a while and then thawed out. Whenever there's ammonia on something, that's when fish know not to eat it. That's why you'll throw out a bait sometimes that seems like it's been dead a little while, and you won't get any bites on it, and then you'll take a fresh one and throw it out and get a fish right away on it. It's because once they can smell the least amount of ammonia, that's when they avoid whatever they're eating. Everything that dies in the marine environment gives off ammonia, produces and gives off ammonia. So we always want to have fresh bait as fresh as we can. If it's just died the day before and we refrigerate it, we're in good shape. But if we've frozen it and unfrozen it, it changes its whole structure and makes it softer, not as tasty, doesn't look as good. So that's why we try to stay with that. Mm-hmm.
That's why when you buy mackerel at the Vietnamese market, it doesn't work as well as if you were to go catch it yourself.
Right, exactly. Because if it's fresh, it's completely fresh. It doesn't go into the ammonia.
What about rock scallop parts? Have you used rock scallop parts ever?
Scallops are a very touchy subject. Bay scallops are against the law to take. So being in possession of things like that might create issues.
Right.
So,
Rock scallops.
but rock scallops are the ones that come off pilings
Right.
and things like that. I haven't used those, but I guarantee they would work.
Yeah.
Anything that occurs in a marine environment, the fish will eat, and particularly things that occur in the marine environment where they live. So if you go down the jetty and it's got mussel on it, it's got sidewinder crabs running across it, you know the fish are eating those too. So you're absolutely right. Almost anything that grows, so if you went out to the oil derrick out there, which are covered in scallops, I guarantee you pop some of those off and use those for bait. I mean, you're not going to catch a yellowtail, but there'll be all kinds of perch and other small fish that normally eat those. Yeah. Question in the back there?
I saw a video recently where somebody was doing what appeared to be razor clamps at low tide,
Mhm.
and saw the little dimple and poured a little powdery, white powdery substance on it, and then his foot came up and was able to get it. What substance is that? Have you ever seen or heard that?
Might have been cocaine. I don't know. You know, people do all kinds of weird things. I've seen like Ajax and stuff like that. But there are razor clams, and there's actually quite a few of them. Some huge ones in the Santa Ana River that are like this big. But there's a lot of razor clams in any type of marine environment where you have like a harbor that's got a combination of sand and mud. But as far as that technique, I'm really not familiar with that. Back in the day when there were a lot of ghost shrimp, we used to actually just be able to go down at night over at the boatyard in Pedro and just stomp on the ground, and they'd come up all around you. You just pick them up. And then, you know, worms they shock and things like that. But for us, depending on what baits we're looking for, if we're looking for clams, we'll normally look in the places where they live. So that would be little neck clams, for example, which is a clam that looks a lot like the Shell Oil logo. You're going to find those under rocks. Clams like you're talking about, razor clams, you're going to find those exclusively in sand and muddy areas. All clams, all ghost shrimp, all worms, all crabs, they produce little holes in the sand. And when you go to the bays and you look at low tide and you see all these little holes, in those holes are a variety of different things, some of which can be clams, bivalves. Question over here?
You ever use green peas for opali?
Yeah, we used to use green peas a lot till we discovered opali moss. I don't have any of that with me either today. I gave up my last opali moss the other day, but opali moss is a green moss that grows anywhere. Once again, you're inside in a marine environment. Like right now, where a ton of it is the in Long Beach at the boat. What is that place called? Where everybody water skis.
Marine Stadium.
By Colorado Lagoon. Marine Stadium. There is a swath that's like 30 feet wide and a quarter mile long on each side. It's super chartreuse in color. So those buttermouth perch, opalite perch, pile perch, they're herbivores. So they eat moss. So when we're a kid, we'd use peas, which would mimic the moss, right? Mm-hmm. So once we found the moss, we didn't need the peas anymore. But yeah, the peas work fine, but the peas are only going to work in a rocky environment where you find herbivore variety of perch that aren't gonna eat sand crabs and things like that.
You ever heard about using green, like power bait for catching those kind of fish?
No, but that'd probably work if a pea would work in its green.
Right.
You would just want it chartreuse, kind of like your hat, the color of your hat, your color. Guys had a question in the back there? Any other rigging questions at all? Uh-huh.
Do you use one of those tools, I think you make it out of PVC pipe, that you can suck the
I
things
do,
out of the,
I do.
out of the holes?
The ghost shrimp pump.
Yeah.
There are two types of ghost shrimp pumps. The one type you can't buy anymore, and then the one that you make. In my book, as one of the last chapters of my book, I show you in that book how to build that. It's about $17 or $18 worth of stuff at the depot, easy to make, and you can make a suction pump. Prior to a few months ago, when they went out of business after 105 years, Aldi of Australia made a stainless steel one. That's the one that I use. And the good thing about the stainless steel is that the thickness of the 2-inch piping is so thin, it is like a hot knife through butter going into that sand. The problem with using PVC is the pipe is about 3/8 of an inch thick around its whole diameter, and it makes it more difficult to get it under the sand. But that's really the only option now because Aldi's gone out of business, and I don't see anybody making these stainless pumps anymore. Any other questions before I move on? Uh-huh.
On your sidewinder crabs,
Uh-huh.
where do you go to catch them?
Okay.
And, I've turned over 1,000,000 rocks and probably caught 2 crabs.
Okay.
I mean, it's ridiculous, you know?
I know.
You have a little trap, or how do you do it? What do you raise them?
Well, I used to like what is called agile. I would go out on a jetty, and I'd see a whole bunch on a rock, and I'd fall into a crack, and these little butter knife and pop them out and put them in my thing. Can't do that anymore. Too old for that.
Yeah.